Captain Sarah Rice watched frost crawl across the inside of her helmet as oxygen levels dropped to critical. The UES Pathfinder, humanity's vanguard deep space vessel, drifted powerless in Neptune's shadow, a $13 billion coffin. Around her, the bridge crew worked frantically by the dim glow of emergency lighting, their breath visible in the freezing air. Core restart attempt 17, announced Lieutenant Chen, her fingers stiff inside thermal gloves. Bypassing primary ignition sequence, rerouting through auxiliary. Failed. Sarah closed her eyes briefly. All hands, prepare for emergency protocol Lazarus. We have 43 minutes of backup oxygen remaining. A blinding light tore through the darkness beyond the viewports. The bridge crew collectively flinched, raising hands to shield their eyes. When Sarah lowered her arm, she witnessed the impossible. A massive vessel had materialized less than a kilometer away. Its crystalline structure caught Neptune's reflected sunlight like a cathedral of stars, throwing prismatic patterns across the Pathfinder's bridge. Sensors detecting. Nothing, reported Tactical Officer Rodriguez. Whatever that is, our systems can't process it. The alien ship, there was no other word for it, extended what appeared to be a docking apparatus. Within minutes, the Pathfinder shuddered as something connected to their emergency airlock. Security teams to Deck 3, Sarah ordered, unstrapping from her command chair. Senior officers with me. Let's meet our visitors. The beings that emerged through the airlock defied expectations. Tall and slender with iridescent skin that rippled with color like living opals, they moved with liquid grace. Their translucent environmental suits contained no obvious breathing apparatus. I am Captain Sarah Rice of the United Earth ship Pathfinder, she announced, hoping the universal gesture of open palms conveyed peaceful intentions. The lead alien's skin shifted through patterns of blue and green. It raised a device resembling polished obsidian, which projected a field of dancing symbols between them. Moments later, it spoke in flawless English. We are Vashreen. Your vessel's energy signature ceased. We offer assistance. 20 minutes later, Sarah stood in engineering, watching Vashreen technicians examine the Pathfinder's fusion core with devices that seemed to phase between solid and liquid states. Their technology was centuries beyond Earth's most advanced systems. Their starships crossed galaxies through fold space in days rather than years. Their energy matrices bordered on perpetual motion. And according to their translator, their bioengineering had eliminated disease, allowing lifespans of centuries. Yet something was wrong. The Pathfinder's core had suffered a simple magnetic containment failure, a problem any first-year engineering cadet could diagnose. But the Vashreen engineers seemed paralyzed when their initial repair protocol didn't produce expected results. Their skin flushed amber with what Sarah would later learn indicated confusion as oxygen levels continued to drop. Your pardon, said Dr. Elena Rice, the ship's chief xenobiologist and Sarah's younger sister. Elena pushed past the frozen aliens and knelt by the exposed core housing. We don't have time for perfect solutions. With calm efficiency, Elena bypassed the damaged regulator using components salvaged from a food processor and sealed the connections with emergency hull sealant, engineering heresy that nevertheless caused the core indicators to flicker back to life. Auxiliary power hummed through the ship, and the life support warning silenced. Sarah noticed something disturbing. The lead Vashreen engineer's skin had shifted to deep violet, as it recorded every improvised move Elena made. Not surprise at the ship being saved, but intense fascination specifically when Elena repurposed non-standard components to solve the problem. Your solution uses incompatible components, the Vashreen said, its translator struggling with what seemed like an impossible concept. Yet functionality is restored. Elena shrugged. It's ugly, but it works. We can replace it with proper parts when we're not about to suffocate. The Vashreen's skin rippled with that same violet hue. What humans would eventually learn indicated profound intellectual excitement. Fascinating, it said. We would not have considered such improvisation. 3 weeks later, Commander Jackson Wee stood in Earth Orbital Defense Headquarters, his cybernetic eyes zooming in on holographic projections of the second wave of Vashrine vessels entering the system. Something caught his attention. The new ships featured reinforced engine cowlings exactly like Earth's solar flare-resistant designs. The third wave vessels showed modified airlock systems identical to a patent filed by Wei's former Academy roommate just months earlier. "They're copying this," Wade muttered to his assistant. "Why would a civilization centuries ahead of us bother? The answer would change humanity's understanding of their place in the cosmos forever." 6 months into diplomatic relations, Dr. Elena Reyes found herself reassigned to the Seattle Special Access Facility, a converted shopping mall now housing the Xenotechnology Division. The cavernous space hummed with the sound of researchers puzzling over recovered Vashrine artifacts, each more bewildering than the last. Elena slipped on the specialized interface gloves designed to interact with alien tech. The medical scanner before her, a glossy obsidian device shaped like a teardrop, responded to her touch with a soft blue glow. According to their Vashrine contacts, it could diagnose cellular damage at the quantum level, worth more than the GDP of small nations, literally irreplaceable on Earth. Her hand trembled slightly as she adjusted a setting. Suddenly, a power surge crackled through the lab, and the device flickered and died. "Shit," Elena muttered, envisioning diplomatic incidents and her imminent reassignment to Antarctic weather monitoring. Without thinking, she pried open the casing with her utility knife, revealing crystalline circuitry that seemed to flow like frozen mercury. Elena identified a scorched connection point and, drawing on her emergency repair experience, bypassed the damaged circuit using a filament from her own headlamp. The device hummed back to life. "Do that again," demanded a voice behind her. Elena turned to face director Amala Chandrasekhar, a hardened veteran of 3 corporate wars, her face a map of thin white scars. "I just improvised a repair," Elena explained. "No," Chandrasekhar said, eyes narrowing. "Show me exactly how you decided what to bypass." "Your cognitive process." The pattern emerged across all Vashrine technology. Their devices were marvels of efficiency, but catastrophically fragile. Their ships had no redundant systems. Their AIs operated with parameters so rigid they crashed when faced with contradictory inputs. Their weapons could level mountains but lacked basic safety mechanisms humans built into slingshots. 2 days later, Commander Wei received Elena's encrypted findings at his lunar observation post. The message arrived as he reviewed footage of a Vashrine cruiser suffering catastrophic engine failure from a micrometeoroid impact, an event human ships routinely survived. The footage showed Vashrine crew abandoning functioning sections rather than implementing containment procedures. "They're perfect engineers who've never needed to be good mechanics," Wei muttered, seeing the pattern. A hypersonic transport delivered him to the Seattle facility within hours. In a secure room shielded from potential surveillance, Wei spread his findings before Elena. "They build perfect systems that cannot handle imperfection," he concluded. "Look at these recovered Vashrine educational materials. Their engineering curriculum contains no failure analysis, no degraded state operations. They design assuming ideal conditions." "But that's," Elena began. "Insane," Wei finished. "Only from our perspective. We evolved expecting disaster." Their theory gained sudden validation when engineer Aisha Okafor, overseeing a joint human Vashrine project on Ganymede, transmitted classified footage. She had deliberately sabotaged her habitat's oxygen recycler during a Vashrine inspection. The aliens watched, their skin cycling through colors of confusion and distress as Aisha calmly ripped out damaged components, reversed polarity on power cells, and got the system working at 60% capacity. Enough to survive. "Why would you design for failure?" asked a junior Vashrine scientist named Trelvon, his translator struggling with the concept. "Because everything fails eventually," Aisha responded with practiced nonchalance. The alien skin shifted to deep indigo, what humans now recognize as profound distress. Then it said something that validated Wei and Alina's wildest theories. The homeworld has experienced uninterrupted ideal conditions for 40,000 years. Our historical archives contain no record of famine, plague, or resource wars. His fellow Vashreen reacted with horror at this security breach, their skin flushing crimson. But Trelvon continued, fascination overriding caution. Your species expects disaster. Ours has never known it. This is why we study you with such intensity. We replayed the footage for the 5th time, then looked at Alina. They're not studying our technology, he said quietly. They're studying our relationship with failure. Alina nodded slowly. And they're terrified of what happens when they finally encounter a problem they can't solve with perfect engineering. The question is, Wei replied, what problem are they preparing for? A diplomatic crisis erupted following Trelvon's unauthorized revelation. Vashreen High Command issued formal apologies for the misinformation their junior scientist had provided, but Earth's intelligence services seized the opportunity. The United Earth Coalition demanded unprecedented access to Vashreen historical and biological data in exchange for continued technological cooperation. Surprising everyone, the Vashreen agreed. Alina found herself in a secured underground facility beneath the red sands of the Australian outback, leading a team analyzing the alien data. The evidence was staggering and verified everything Trelvon had revealed. Look at this, she told Commander Wei during a secure briefing. The Vashreen homeworld, Vasith, has experienced stable geological conditions for over 12 million years. Their continental plates locked in perfect balance eons ago. No earthquakes, no volcanoes, no tsunamis. We studied the atmospheric data. Their axial tilt creates seasons so predictable that variation of more than half a degree Celsius is considered extreme weather. They've never experienced an ice age, a drought, or even a significant hurricane. But this is the most critical finding, Alina said, bringing up biological scans. The Vashreen evolved without natural predators. Their only competition was with passive plant species for resources that were never scarce. Wei's cybernetic eyes narrowed. They're what happens when evolution has nothing to push against. Alina nodded grimly. And humanity is what happens when everything tries to kill you for 4 billion years. She pulled up horrifying footage. Vashreen colonists encountering their first hurricane on an experimental settlement world. The aliens stood frozen as winds tore through their perfectly engineered but catastrophically fragile structures. None attempted to evacuate or improvise shelter. Thousands died waiting for instructions that never came. They have no instinct for survival under pressure, Wei observed. Their evolutionary psychology never developed crisis response mechanisms. Precisely why they're so fascinated by us, Alina replied. We're walking evolutionary impossibilities to them. Wei shared his own discovery. Decrypted Vashreen communications classified humanity as evolutionary anomalies. One message described humans as a species that should have gone extinct 17 separate times, but instead became stronger through each catastrophe. Meanwhile, on Jupiter's moon Ganymede, engineer Aisha Okafor found herself unexpectedly popular among the Vashreen scientific community. They requested her presence at increasingly bizarre scenarios. A training exercise where oxygen was deliberately reduced to critical levels, a simulation where crucial equipment was randomly disabled, a scenario where communication systems failed entirely. During one such exercise, a structural collapse trapped Aisha and 3 Vashreen observers beneath twisted metal and debris. The aliens immediately entered a hibernation state, their species' response to hopeless scenarios. Aisha, despite 3 broken ribs and a concussion, spent 18 hours constructing a transmitter from damaged equipment to signal for help. As medical drones extracted them, the senior Vashreen observer's skin rippled with colors humans had never recorded before. How did you know that would work? It asked. I didn't, Aisha replied through gritted teeth as medics stabilized her injuries. But I knew doing nothing guaranteed death. The alien studied her with multifaceted eyes. Your species' greatest technology, It said, is not your devices, but your refusal to accept failure as an outcome. Later that week, Alina presented these findings to the United Earth Security Council, her conclusion unequivocal. The Vashreen aren't copying our technology because it's superior. They're copying our adaptability because their perfect evolution left them fatally unprepared for imperfection. Admiral Chen, the newly appointed head of extraterrestrial affairs, leaned forward. And why would a species with perfect technology suddenly need to learn about imperfection, Doctor? Wei answered for her. Because they've encountered something their perfect systems can't handle, Admiral. And they're terrified. The question is, Alina added, what scares a civilization that's never known fear? The invitation arrived unexpectedly. Humanity summoned to join the Galactic Confederation. The message bypassed normal diplomatic channels, appearing simultaneously on every Vashreen communication device on Earth, marked with priority designations that left their ambassadors visibly shaken. Within days, Earth's first delegation departed aboard the retrofitted UES Prometheus. Admiral Helena Chen, a veteran of the resource wars whose tactical innovations saved millions, led the mission. Commander Wei and Dr. Alina Reyes joined as strategic advisors, their knowledge of Vashreen psychology now deemed critical. Something's forced their hand, Wei said, studying the hasty retrofits to their vessel, a hybrid of human improvisational engineering and Vashreen precision technology. They wouldn't have accelerated the introduction timetable otherwise. The Confederation hub stunned even humanity's most jaded representatives. A megastructure orbiting a binary star system, housing 17 spacefaring species. Crystalline architecture flowed like frozen music, interior spaces shifted to accommodate different biological needs, and artwork spanning millennia adorned walls that seemed to defy conventional physics. Yet Admiral Chen's trained eye spotted disturbing patterns beneath the technological marvels. No visible emergency systems, no manual overrides, no redundancies. The entire structure operated on the assumption of perfect functionality. It's beautiful, she told Wei quietly. And it's a death trap. During formal introductions, the human delegation faced 17 species of breathtaking diversity. Crystalline entities that communicated through light patterns, gaseous collectives that flowed like conscious fog, beings with such advanced bioengineering, they barely resembled natural evolution. Yet all regarded humans with the same unsettling mixture of fascination and wariness. You are not what we expected, admitted this Cathul representative, a being resembling an upright nautilus whose shell contains swirling bioluminescent fluids. Most emergent species require guidance. The true revelation came during the formal reception. The hub's power grid experienced a cascading failure, what the Confederation representatives described as a 1 in a billion event. Systems shut down completely. Life support faltered. 17 advanced species stood frozen in mounting panic as atmosphere thinned and gravity fluctuated. Only the humans immediately organized, Admiral Chen establishing a command structure while her engineers forced manual access to critical systems. Alina identified emergency protocols from architectural patterns, while Wei coordinated improvised repairs using materials torn from decorative fixtures. Hours later, as the humans completed emergency repairs that saved thousands of lives, the Skithal representative cornered Admiral Chen in a temporarily repressurized maintenance corridor. In 26,000 years of interstellar civilization, it pulsed through shifting bioluminescence. We have encountered only 3 species with your profile. What profile? Chen demanded. Species forged through extinction filters. The alien responded. Evolutionary crucibles. Planets that should create only fossils, not starfarers. The conversation was interrupted by Alina's urgent arrival. Admiral, we've detected a disturbing pattern. All 17 Confederation species are downloading Earth's historical records, focusing specifically on human disasters, wars, famines, and plagues. I need to know what's happening, Chen demanded of the skull. Now, the alien shell pulsed rapid patterns of agitation. Your people survived multiple nuclear exchanges, ice ages, pandemics, resource depletion. Your history reads like an apocalyptic simulation. That's just Tuesday on Earth, Chen replied dryly. No, the alien countered, its lights shifting to a pattern the translator identified as existential dread. That is precisely what makes you valuable and terrifying. It gestured toward a viewport, where a distant star pulsed with unnatural rhythm. The coming darkness will consume us all, unless creatures like you can teach us how to endure what cannot be survived. The implications hit Chen like a physical blow. The Confederation wasn't merely interested in human technology. They were desperate for human survival instincts, because something was coming that their perfect civilizations had no framework to withstand. How long have you known? She asked quietly. 2 of your decades, the Skadal admitted. We detected the first anomalies then. That's when we began searching for species like yours. And you didn't warn us. We wanted to study your responses without contamination by fear, the alien replied. We needed to understand how you think when facing the unknown. Wei's expression hardened. Well, now you know. We survive it. 3 years after Earth joined the Confederation, the coming darkness arrived without warning. The first sign, a Vashrine colony world went silent. Reconnaissance drones discovered a horror, a swirling vortex of energy that defied known physics, consuming everything in its path. Within days, similar rifts appeared throughout Confederation space. Admiral Chen stood in the emergency command center established within the Confederation hub, watching holographic displays track the rift's expansion. Each pulsed with the same unnatural rhythm as the star she'd observed years earlier. They don't just destroy, reported Wei, who had been coordinating reconnaissance missions. They corrupt technology. Advanced systems exposed to rift energy malfunction catastrophically. The Confederation's response proved exactly as catastrophic as Chen had feared. Advanced weapon systems targeted the rifts, only to be absorbed and redirected. Defense networks, faced with phenomena outside their parameters, crashed irretrievably. Evacuation protocols collapsed when predictive algorithms failed to model the rift's chaotic expansion. In the Central Council chamber, representatives from 17 species debated philosophical implications and theoretical models while worlds burned. Chen exchanged glances with Alina, then nodded grimly. Alina slipped Wei a small device, a security override she developed by studying Vashrine technology. He placed it against the communication hub, bypassing safety protocols and giving Chen system-wide broadcast capability. Enough! Chen's voice thundered across the chamber, silencing 17 species of bickering diplomats. Earth will coordinate the response. Your ships will follow our commands, or your people will die while you debate. The Confederation, faced with extinction, reluctantly agreed. Within hours, Chen had established humanity's leadership over the crisis response, with defected Vashrine scientist Trelvon as her liaison to Confederation forces. General Wei, commanding Earth's newly established Crisis Response Division from the battle carrier UES Tenacity, mobilized a fleet unlike anything the Confederation had seen. Human vessels had been designed with the assumption of catastrophic damage. Their systems could route around failures, components could be repurposed on the fly, and every vessel could operate on minimum power with manual controls if necessary. First priority is evacuation of populations in the rift's projected paths, Wei ordered. Second priority is establishing observation perimeters. We need data. Meanwhile, in a fortified research station, orbiting a gas giant 12 light-years from the nearest rift, Alina worked feverishly alongside Trelvon. Their research team had discovered something horrifying. The rifts generated resonance patterns that specifically targeted the operational frequencies of Confederation technology. Look at these harmonic signatures, Alina explained over an emergency briefing, her holographic image flickering as another communication relay failed. The rifts emit energy patterns that precisely match the operational frequencies of Confederation power systems, weapons, and computational networks, but in counterphase. Energy cancellation. Trellvon added, his skin the dull gray of extreme stress. Like noise-canceling technology, but for quantum fields. This isn't a natural phenomenon, Alina concluded. The rifts are weapons. They're exploiting the exact weaknesses we identified in Confederation systems. They target perfect, efficient systems with no capacity for degraded operation. Who would create such a weapon? Demanded the Scythal representative, its bioluminescence flickering with panic. Trellvon's skin shifted to a color humans now recognize as grim certainty. Someone who evolved like humanity did, he said. Someone who understands that the most dangerous predator isn't the one with the sharpest claws, but the one who can still hunt after those claws are broken. A transmission from the front lines interrupted the briefing. Footage from a damaged scout ship that had ventured too close to a rift. For brief seconds, the video showed massive structures emerging from the energy vortices, biological mechanical hybrids that systematically disassembled Confederation worlds with horrifying precision. They're not just destroying. Wei's voice came through, tight with controlled anger. They're harvesting, taking apart advanced technology piece by piece. Admiral Chen's expression hardened as the pieces fell into place. They're predators, she said. And they found the perfect prey. Civilizations that can't adapt when their perfect systems fail. Earth's Security Council convened an emergency session, 17 minutes long. The vote was unanimous. Humanity would lead the Confederation's defense. General Wei transformed Luna Base into Crisis Command, a chaotic hub where representatives from all 17 Confederation species watched in bewilderment as humans implemented strategies that defied their understanding of proper crisis management. Electromagnetic pulse hardening on all essential systems, Wei ordered, striding through the command center. Strip all quantum communication relays and reactivate radio transmission arrays. The cognitive gap between humans and their allies became immediately apparent. A Vashrine communications specialist's skin flushed amber with confusion. These frequencies exist outside the rift's disruption spectrum. Wei explained with forced patience. Yes, they're slower than quantum communication. Yes, the fidelity is poor, but they'll still work when everything else fails. The Merdini representative, a collective of semi-sentient fungi, released spores of distress that required emergency ventilation. You propose deliberately using inferior technology. This violates fundamental engineering principles. Welcome to humanity's greatest engineering principle, Wei responded. Anything that works is superior to perfection that fails. Similar cognitive dissonance occurred across all fronts when Alina proposed converting luxury cruise vessels to medical ships by stripping their amenities. The Vashrine shipwrights protested that the vessels weren't designed for such purposes. When human engineers hacked navigation systems to function without their AI components, Confederation scientists warned of unacceptable error margins. 2% error is infinitely better than 100% failure, Alina countered, her patience wearing thin. Perfect solutions that arrive too late save no one. On the front lines, human captains demonstrated why Earth's educational curriculum still included history's greatest disasters. Captain Nadia Volkov of the UES Prometheus led a fleet into a rift-saturated sector where 17 Confederation colony worlds faced imminent destruction. When the rift disabled her navigation systems, she piloted manually, using visual references and mathematical calculations done on paper. Captain, we've lost life support on decks 4 through 7, her XO reported as another system failed. Seal those sections, reroute power from weapons to remaining life support, and continue approach, Volkov ordered without hesitation. Most shocking to the Confederation observers, when the Prometheus suffered catastrophic damage from a direct rift encounter, Volkov didn't abandon ship. She ordered unnecessary sections depressurized, converted the mess hall into an emergency medical bay, and continued the mission with the ship operating at 40% capacity. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Commander Jamal Rahman, a specialist in improvisational engineering, transformed debris from destroyed Confederation vessels into a crude sensor network. The technology was primitive by Confederation standards, little more than directional radio transmitters and receivers, but unlike their advanced systems, it functioned in the presence of the rifts. "I'm picking up patterns in the rift's expansion," Rahman reported. "They're not random. They're targeting communication hubs first, then power generation centers, then life support, in exactly that sequence. Tactical behavior," we noted grimly, "confirms our predator theory." A skiffle scientist, observing Rahman's team repurpose a food synthesizer as a medical radiation treatment device, finally asked the question that had haunted the Confederation since first contact: "How do you know these improvisations will work?" Rahman laughed as he bypassed a safety protocol with a paperclip. "We don't. But throughout human history, the alternative was extinction. You either adapt or you die. And humanity decided long ago that death was unacceptable." In Crisis Command, Admiral Chen watched rescue operations unfold across 17 systems. Human vessels, operating with damaged systems and improvised repairs, evacuated millions while Confederation ships with minor damage sat helpless, their crews paralyzed by deviations from optimal operational parameters. "They're learning," Elin observed, noticing how some Vashrine crews had begun mimicking human emergency procedures. "Not fast enough," Chen replied, eyes fixed on the tactical display where the rifts continued expanding. "And I'm not sure we have time to teach them." The rifts pulsed in unison, as if responding to her words. In a reinforced bunker deep beneath the surface of a moon humanity had codenamed Fortress, Alina and Trelvon worked surrounded by equipment salvaged from 17 different species. The room hummed with the sound of jury-rigged cooling systems keeping primitive computational devices from overheating, the only computers that could operate in proximity to rift energy. "There," Alina said, pointing to a pattern in the chaotic data streams. "The rifts don't expand randomly. They target communications first, then power generation, then life support, in exactly that sequence across 17 different technological architectures." Trelvon's skin shifted to a color humans had never seen before, a deep ultraviolet the human eyes could barely perceive. "This confirms it," he said. "These aren't natural phenomena. They're weapons designed by an intelligence that understands precisely how Confederation technology fails. Their breakthrough came from an unexpected source: archaeological data from worlds consumed by similar phenomena throughout Confederation history. Events dismissed as anomalous spatial disturbances showed identical patterns spanning thousands of years, always targeting advanced worlds, always exploiting the same psychological vulnerabilities. They're hunting," Elena realized, the implications sending ice through her veins, harvesting civilizations that don't know how to bend without breaking. She initiated an emergency transmission to Crisis Command, the signal bouncing through Rahman's improvised relay network. "Admiral, we've confirmed hostile intelligence. The entities aren't just consuming, they're systematically harvesting. And this isn't their first hunt." Meanwhile, aboard the UES Intrepid, Admiral Chen and General Wei witnessed the final proof. A damaged scout ship returned from the edge of a rift with footage of massive structures emerging briefly from the energy vortices, biological mechanical hybrids that systematically disassembled Confederation worlds with horrifying precision. "They're not just destroying," Wei observed, his cybernetic eyes enhancing the grainy footage. "They're consuming, taking apart advanced technology piece by piece, like a surgeon, not a destroyer." The emergency Confederation Council session that followed brought the horrifying truth to light. The rifts were weapons deployed by entities that evolved through the same brutal filters as humanity, but took a different path. Where humans developed cooperation, these entities developed predation. Where humans built resilience through community, these entities built resilience through consumption of the weak. They evolved on death worlds like Earth, Admiral Chen explained to the stunned council. But instead of developing mutual aid, they developed perfect predation. They target species like yours because your psychology makes you vulnerable. You freeze when systems fail because you never evolved to expect failure. The Scythal representatives' bioluminescence dimmed in what translators identified as existential despair. And humans, we're your evolutionary opposite, Chen responded. We expect everything to go wrong all the time. Our first instinct when a system fails isn't paralysis, it's adaptation. A Merdini representative released confusion spores, but the entities evolved as you did. Why aren't they targeting Earth first? Trellvaughn's translator struggled to convey his response. Because they recognize humanity as something they've never encountered before. Prey that becomes more dangerous when wounded. Back in the bunker, Elena made another discovery that chilled her to the core. The rifts aren't just energy phenomena. They're information gatherers. They're studying Confederation responses, adapting their attack patterns in real time. They're learning, Trellvaughn noted, his skin shifting to anxious patterns. As we are. Elena nodded grimly. But there's a crucial difference. Their evolutionary path optimized them for efficient predation, taking down prey that behaves according to predictable patterns. Our path optimized us for chaotic response, becoming more unpredictable under pressure. She pointed to a simulation showing how the rifts had adapted to Confederation countermeasures, but struggled to maintain coherence when facing human vessels that constantly changed tactics, improvised defenses, and operated in ways that defied logical prediction. This is why they can't simply overwhelm us, she realized. We're the first prey they've encountered that doesn't follow the rules of optimal response. Our inferior solutions confuse their perfect predation models. Wei's voice came through the crackling communication system. Then we need to become even more unpredictable. Dr. Rice, how do we turn our evolutionary psychology into a weapon? Elena exchanged glances with Trellvaughn, whose skin now displayed a pattern she'd never seen. One the translator identified as determined hope. We stop trying to fight them with technology, she answered, and start fighting them with chaos. The final confrontation unfurled in the Arcturus system, humanity's newest colony world, and the entity's next target. The coalition fleet assembled, a patchwork armada of vessels from all 18 Confederation species. At its heart, Earth's third fleet, ships that incorporated both human ingenuity and adapted alien technology. The rift entities emerge, massive biological mechanical constructs that shifted and flowed like liquid metal, their surfaces bristling with weapons evolved through millennia of conquest. They moved with predatory confidence, having consumed thousands of civilizations using the same tactics. All vessels maintain communications discipline, ordered Admiral Chen from the command deck of the UES Resolute. Execute random course changes every 90 seconds as per briefed patterns. The battle began catastrophically. The entities emitted precisely modulated energy pulses that disabled advanced weapon systems across the fleet. Confederation ships fell like dying stars, their crews paralyzed by the failure of technologies they couldn't function without. Chen's voice cut through the chaos on all frequencies. Implement Operation Endurance. Now. Aboard human vessels, crews executed the unthinkable. They physically disconnected their advanced systems, reverting to technology centuries old. Navigation officers unfolded paper star charts. Weapons specialists manually loaded railgun projectiles. Engineers bypassed eye-targeting systems in favor of human eyes and instinct. "What are you doing?" demanded the Vashrine fleet commander as human ships powered down their energy shields, technology vulnerable to the entity's disruption. "Fighting fire with fire," General Wei responded from the command deck of the UES Defiant. Or more accurately, fighting evolutionary predators with evolutionary prey that refused to die. Human ships accelerated directly toward the entities, using momentum and crude projectile weapons immune to energy disruption. When their systems were damaged, crews were routed through manual backups. When ships lost engines, they converted the disaster into advantage. allowing themselves to be pulled into the entity's gravity wells before detonating their reactors. The entities, confronted with prey that adapted rather than succumbed, faltered for the first time in their predatory history. Their tactics evolved to exploit psychological paralysis in the face of technological failure, prove useless against humans who expected failure as the default state. The battle reached its crescendo when Captain Volkov's critically damaged Prometheus deployed humanity's final innovation, a weapon developed by Elena and Trelvon that transmitted the complete evolutionary history of Earth. Not as information, but as a weapon that forced the entities to experience the countless extinction events humanity survived. Transmitting now, Volkov reported, blood trickling from a wound on her forehead as her ship's structure groaned around her. Let's see how they handle 4 billion years of stubborn survival. The entity's biological components, faced with the psychological impact of Earth's evolutionary crucible, experienced the equivalent of existential shock. For the first time in their existence, they retreated, not from superior technology, but from the recognition of prey that could not be consumed through expected patterns. In the aftermath, the Confederation transformed. The Vashreen began incorporating manual overrides into their ship designs. The Skithal established training programs where their young deliberately experienced resource scarcity. The Merdini developed spore patterns that triggered contingency behaviors in response to unexpected threats. As reconstruction began, Elena and Trelvon established the Interspecies Evolutionary Psychology Institute on Earth. In its central courtyard stood a monument, not to advanced technology, but to a simple paperclip, representing humanity's knack for finding solutions with whatever was at hand. General Wei, addressing the first graduating class of the new Confederation Mixed Species Crisis Response Force, summarized humanity's gift to the galaxy. Perfect systems fail perfectly. Imperfect systems adapt imperfectly. And survival has never demanded perfection. It demands only that you refuse to accept extinction as an outcome. In the observatory deck of the rebuilt Confederation hub, Admiral Chen watched the installation of a new emergency system, one with manual controls, redundant backups, and the capacity to operate at reduced functionality when damaged. Beside her, the Skithal High Ambassador's bioluminescence pulsed with what translators now recognized as profound respect.